Turn it off, just click this button right.
Gail, are you and staff ready for 4 o'clock?
Yes. Yep, you're good.
It's already on. Yeah, everything that you have in your package is online. When you get it, it goes online.
You are impressive.
Oh, yeah,
Good stuff.
favorably.
Okay, it's 4 o'clock. I'm going to call this meeting to order of the Clatsop County Comprehensive Plan Update Countywide Citizen Advisory Committee. It is July 17th, 4 p.m. As calling to order, we've got a bunch of new members today. It's not explicitly in the agenda, but I'd like to take a minute just to recognize everyone around the table and have us briefly introduce ourselves so that we have some sense of who's here and who we're representing. My name is Andy Davis. I'm a resident of Astoria. I was appointed to the Countywide Advisory Committee and third choice to be the chair, but the first choice to actually accept it. So I am your chair for this process. I'll let my or a little bit about myself. So I'm a data analyst for Greater Oregon Behavioral Health Incorporated. I'm originally from Bloomington, Indiana. I've lived in Clatsop County and Astoria for 4.5 years now. Jan, I might ask you to go next just because you are the next in line.
So official, yes. I am his assistant. I am the vice chair. My name is Jan Mitchell. I was born in that state to the south of us, but I am not one of the rich Californians who lived here. Professionally, I was a city planner in a city of about 40,000. Since being here, I've been on the County Planning Commission for a few years, on the City Planning Commission until my husband got elected as council member. I volunteered for CASA and other things, been on boards and so on. Got off of that, basically. And I'm really very interested in this because in my career, did a lot of long-range planning, and I'm very interested and impressed by the work that staff is doing.
What's your ethnicity?
Scottish and French.
That was
That
kind
was-
of in news item here.
I know, and it's important, really. My father was,
Kellyanne.
I'm a first generation, my father was an immigrant. So there.
I'm Robert Strickland, and I'm here because I'm also, I'm a liaison from the Clatsop Plains Advisory Group of the Clatsop County Comprehensive Plan Update, whatever. And I'll tell you later, we got to hear a gorgeous sermon from the Chinook Nation's representative. So I feel that we really got great, and I look forward to hearing from Lower Columbia Hispanic Council.
Thank you.
I'm Todd Lundy, Theodore Lundy. My nickname's Todd. I'm an architect. I have been involved in city planning. My first city planning job was actually as an apprentice architect, and it was in New York City. And the job was to plan for all of Lower Manhattan because there were 2 large towers being built there. And so I worked on that for 2 years until we had a plan completed. And then I worked for Columbia University as a planner also. Well, I was an architect apprentice, but I did a plan for them and some architectural work. I'm the representative for the Southwest County, and I've owned property down there since the mid-'70s. And as for lineage, I'm a 4th generation Oregonian. My great-great-grandfather was a circuit rider down Mid-Willamette Valley. And so I'm a PKKK or something. And that's about what I've got to say for myself.
Thanks, Tom.
Okay. I'm Pat Corcoran. I live in Astoria. I don't know my lineage because both my parents were circus performers and all that information is lost. But I'm employed by Oregon State University and work for the Clatsop County Extension Office here. My background is regional economics and rural development, but since 2005, it's been in the context of coastal hazards, in particular earthquake and tsunami. And I also serve on the City of Astoria Planning Commission, and have, in this role, looking at the county-wide view, but I'm so interested in all parts of the county.
I'm Leanne Thompson. I'm a first generation Clatsop County person for the last 20 years. I live practically to the Tillamook County line. I have the honor of representing the southern half of Clatsop County. District 5 is 50.3% of the landmass. So I get to hang out with Todd, Robert, and Jan and I. We're on the planning commission together, so it tells you something about Bruce Francis, that he could corral all of us and a couple of others. I'm here, I did land use planning for the Northwest District Association as a planning commission member, which was at that time the most densely populated neighborhood between Seattle and San Francisco. I'm from Michigan, Lansing, Ann Arbor, Detroit, Alaska, Portland, and then out here. So I've been in urban and rural. I'm interested in ecologically sustainable economic development. I'm interested in saving the planet and loving the people into wholeness. I started in county government in Michigan in 1968. I worked my way up to be right under the statewide program head. I was a program head of a statewide program in Alaska and also in Oregon. So wonks are us. And I'm delighted to be here with my old and new friends.
I'm Gail Hendrickson. I'm a Community Development Director for the county. And we also have Ian Sisson. He's one of our planners, and he actually arranged your speakers for today.
I'm Harold Gable. I'm a retired dentist for 45 years. I was the president of a very large organization, 53 dogs and 52 offices. I retired, semi-retired. I've been a walk-on, dentist, teaching your dental assistants for the Job Corps for 7 years. And currently semi-retired, as I've said, doing the sharpening of scissors, knives, and a number of other people. It's a volunteer situation with Bear Cafe. I sit on the Arts Council, I sit as a CAC member here, and I also want to see so advisory councils.
I'm Jim Allegria. I live here in Astoria, and I'm a countywide committee member. I recently retired from the U.S. Forest Service Washington office, but I'm also semi-retired as well, and I work for Southern Utah University as well as a self-employed consultant.
Sure. Actually, do you members of the public mind introducing yourself briefly, and maybe we can just start on that end and come down.
Lisa Phipps, I'm the Northwest Regional Representative for the Department of Land Conservation and Development.
Kate Pritchard, recently retired from the military at Camp Riley for 20 years and have lived here my entire life. So just able to finally dedicate some time to being more involved, so that we can breathe new life into bringing people here to meet you guys. So that's me.
Gretchen Allen, CPA. I own the CPA practice, tax practice here in Astoria, and was also a commercial fisherman for most of my life.
Brian Allen, LDL construction, local contractor, been here my whole life as well. Just here to serve.
Rick Bowers, ditto.
I'm Viviana Matthews from Clatsop Community Action. My name's Emma from the Lower Wilderness County Council. I'm the family.
Thank you all for being here. I don't want to ambush Commissioner Webb right as she comes in the door. So I'll let her. But we just introduced ourselves and you're the last one. Who are you?
Hi, guys. I'm Commissioner Pam Webb, District 3. Which is Central Astoria, across the Youngs Bay, down to Selma.
Thank you.
Do I have to come and sit with the kids?
You're welcome to
Only
if
if
you
you
want.
want.
Yeah.
But there's a comfortable chair up here, I'm telling you.
So Gail, I've taken up 5 more minutes than I was set to in the agenda, but I appreciate staff humoring us, introducing ourselves. The next item is up to you all.
So I would actually like to fill my time rather than just reiterating what was in your packet about the background report. We actually have 2 speakers today, and the purpose of having the speakers from these 2 particular organizations is to talk about not only what they do, but these are typically populations that aren't reached by a typical governmental process, and so how we can get these types of populations more involved, reach out to them, what are the best ways to interact. So, and if you want to go ahead and introduce everybody.
Sure. So up first, we have Maritza Romero from the Lower Columbia Hispanic Council, and she's got about a 15-minute presentation, and then you can do a Q&A session briefly with her following that. And then we'll have Viviana from Clatsop Community Action present about what they're up to and how it relates to this meeting with community engagement. So I think that's all I have to say about that.
Well, let's see. Hopefully you guys can hear me. I'll try to speak up.
You can pull the mic closer.
We tell people to keep the mic.
There you go. I think I hear myself. So my name is Maritza Romero. I'm the family engagement of the Lower Columbia Hispanic Council, and I work with Latino families in the school districts, and I will later describe more of the program that I am leading at the Hispanic Council here in Clatsop County. I wanted to thank you first for inviting us to be part of this process. I know it is very important to involve the citizens here in Clatsop County in as much as possible, as mentioned, those who are harder to access and to get involved. In my presentation, I hope that you guys take from it is that through our efforts, we have learned ways that have been effective in ways that we engage the Latino communities. I'm also going to mention some barriers that we take into consideration when engaging the Latino community. I'm also, through this process, you're going to see lots of pictures so you can get a better idea of what we do. All of the pictures are of our activities. So here you see the Cinco de Mayo celebration 2019, Teatro Milagro, which is a local folkloric group run by a volunteer of our board of directors. They were presenting at that event. We also worked on No on Measure 105 and La Voz de la Comunidad, which is part of our group. Our nonprofit is that they did this year the Tidal Walk Beautification Project, and it's just this month, I believe, last weekend, that they worked on that. So the things that we'll be focusing on is briefly LCHC history, in case some of you are not so informed of how the Hispanic Council started here in our county. Our current efforts, because we have developed and grown over the last 5 years a lot. The Latino community in the North Coast, according to what we've seen when providing services and programs, because if we base our information on the census, is very outdated. I know our census is coming on soon, which is very exciting. So a lot of the information that I'm sharing is based on what we have internally. Community engagement success stories, which is where I'm going to describe some of our efforts. So here we have our mission statement. Our mission is the equitable integration of the residents, Hispanics, into the broader social economic fabric of the Lower Columbia community. Throughout the presentation, I feel you'll have a sense of what our mission is, and so I'm going to not describe it further. Here you see La Cima Leadership Camp. It's for youth, high school students, 9th grade to 12th. We get students from Lincoln all the way to Pacific County. This is going to be this was our third year doing La Cima Camp. So LCH's history. So here we have, in 1998, Patricia Morrissey founded the Lower Columbia Hispanic Council as a response to Hispanic needs in the area. Later, in 2006, it was established as a nonprofit. At the time, we served only Clatsop and Pacific County, and we really focused on basic direct services, which are interpreting, translation services, tax preparation, navigating social education and health system, because there was a lack of, one, the residents knowing what to do when navigating these systems, and having access to someone that speaks Spanish. In the picture, you'll see Patricia Morrissey, who now lives in Portland, and her history, a little bit of what I know, is that she used to work for the college here, and is a active participant. Even though she lives in Portland, she often comes in our community and still connects us with resources. She's still part of our board. Fernando Rodriguez, who is employed at the Craft 3, and he's still a part of our board, longtime board member. Here, our current work. So in 2013, our organization started to take a shift in programs and services provided to the community. Jorge Gutierrez, which is our executive director, he saw the need to create a safe place where Latino community leaders could voice their concerns and meet with other organizations or local institutes. Some local institutes that they have met with is CMH. They have met with, trying to think of more, ESD, and the sheriff as well, in the beginning of the formation of levels. Currently, we serve 5 counties. As you can see, we have expanded our work: Clatsop, Tillamook, Columbia, Pacific, and Lincoln County. We still have our direct services and added OHP enrollment, which is the Oregon Health Plan and renewal. Our programs are designed to address the root barriers, and we continue to deliver direct services because we know there is a language and cultural gap, and this aids our members to get access to those services and be able to navigate those systems, because we live day-to-day interacting with systems, local systems. So we still provide those direct services that were mentioned previously. Here we have our staff. 2 are missing, so you can see how we have grown. It used to be in 2013, just our executive director. Slowly I came, 2015 I came on board, and now we are a group of 8. And some are, there's a transition going on in our organization, but this is our staff in our new office, which is on 14th Street and Duane. So please, whenever you guys have time, please come and visit us. We have more space, and I feel like we're able to call this place our home because it was remodeled, and it's just a great structure.
What are your hours?
It's Monday through Friday from 9 to 5. So Latinos in Clatsop County, here we know that there's a large percentage who are employed in low-wage and seasonal occupations. Those are the cannery, service, and tourism industries. We also have seen through our services and programs, there's an increase in the forestry sector and small business owners. I'm not sure from you interacting with your day-to-day activity here in our county, you've seen that as well. And of course, seasonal occupation, we're in tourist area, so that's the big employment area for the Latino community. Here you see a seafood processing plant. So most of the Latinos are first-generation immigrants. Within this group, there's a large percentage who have low education level, limited English proficiency, and as said before, the cultural and language barriers make it difficult for them to navigate local systems. So I mentioned social services, education, and court, and others. But we still see within this group that there is still immigrants or non-English speakers who are seeking for furthering their education by going to ESL classes at nights that are offered at the college. They also, at the college, there's license transitions for Latinas. It's done in Spanish, part of it, and the other part is done in English. We also, part of our organization, we have offered workshops that help small business owners to advance in their business or to start up a new business. So we've seen, even though we know that this is relevant to a big chunk of the population, we also know and they consider that there is a group of people that are seeking those opportunities. So the barriers, let me go back, make sure. So when engaging a specific population in our work, it is important to always consider the barriers that might be present that would impact that connection and that access to that opportunity we're offering. Some of those barriers are you can see it across many groups. Others are more group specific, and I'll mention a few more here. So we have the affordable housing crisis here in our state and nationwide, but we can see there's a different effect, and limited resources as well. There's a different effect in immigrants and non-English speakers. So knowing that, it's for us, I know we're not talking about making solutions towards that barrier, but providing that, knowing that there's that barrier, we make sure we provide like dinner at all of our engagements, because we know that there are families, parents, adults who are working more than one job, that they don't have time in order to make it to the engagement. They might not go home to get ready and come to our meetings. So we make sure that we provide dinner for all the members of the family that come. Currently, another barrier is that we're seeing immigration policies really impact our community, and recent ICE activity and threats that are put out in social media. That fear of being deported or to affect their opportunity to apply for legal status is present in a lot of our community members. So understanding that and having that sensitivity, that there's that fear when approaching unfamiliar systems, especially government and federal. So that's one of the things we always consider when doing a meeting or a guest speaker, is to prepare our audience of who's coming and that it's safe for you to talk and engage. It could be that you think of other locations to do your meetings that is not here, or it's not maybe not in a government building.
Do hospitals count? If we could find a meeting room in a hospital, would that be better?
Yeah, I think we had, or at our office, which is always a good space and a safe space for a lot of the families. And I will talk about opportunities of where you could, as a committee, could engage with the Latino communities that we have connected with. The other one is limited access to reliable and quality preschool and daycare options. Being a new mom, I'm experiencing this. So we always make sure we provide daycare, and that person and that's taking care of that child speaks Spanish ideally, because, well, the parent would feel comfortable of leaving their child during that meeting. They're able to communicate with a younger child who only may speak Spanish. So it's one of the things that we always provide when doing meetings that kids are not allowed to be there. We make sure we have activities for the kids. And make sure I say all this. So La Voz de la Comunidad, it was created because we, as mentioned before, we saw the need of creating a platform where Latino leaders can come together and voice their concerns, where we could also learn from what they were, what was their priority, and we can redirect our efforts. So a lot of the programs that you saw previously is because what we have heard from our leaders during those meetings. And this group was formed in January 2015 with only 5 members. Currently, the group has 19 active members. This doesn't include volunteers. Those are the individuals that come to a monthly meeting and make decisions of what are the projects for this group, La Voz de la Comunidad. And La Voz de la Comunidad, and I forgot to say, is the voice of the community in English. So,
can I ask what the Equal Access to Roads Act issue was?
So, some of the efforts that they've been focusing has been more civic engagement. So they did the No on Measure 105, which trying to remove our sanctuary state. Equal to access to roads is HB 21.5, which is having access to license, driver license, regardless of your immigration status. There's still that you have to meet all those requirements, but it was passed. Now we're waiting for that signature, as I know of. And by 2021, it should be implemented. So we're very excited. It's been an effort that, something that our community really was affected, and I believe in 2000, was it in 8?
A long time.
Yeah, it's been a while, that they removed that access of having a driver's license. And it was very hard in our community that we lost that in the voting in 2015. And now we are here again, and we finally got it back. So that's one of here in the picture, you'll see May Days going in Salem at the Capitol, marching to ask for license for all and for equal treatment. All ages came, and it was a great, this is I think it's our second time going to the state capitol, which is a huge advancement, knowing that there are individuals who fear going and doing campaigns, rally. It's really hard to do that. And being able to see a group of Latinos there, it's a big step. So here it is, their mission. They created their mission statements, which is to create unity and build power for the Latino community through advocacy efforts to promote the social and economic well-being of Latino families. Here are some of the activities that they do. We have a visit from our representative, Susan Bonamici, in 2017. She also visited our office this year. Dia de los Muertos, 2018, and Lobby Day License for All in March 2019 this year. And all of those people you see in the stairs are all from our county. A lot of them are from Seaside, which is really great because we've been having trouble engaging in Seaside, and we're seeing more interest of volunteering and supporting this effort, and I feel like there is that opportunity to engage more residents from Seaside. So another program that we had great success is the Organ Health Plan. So in 2015, we were granted funding for Organ Health Authority to provide organ health plan. Our focus is to provide access to healthcare services through OHP and CAWM. CAWM is emergency coverage only for those who don't qualify for OHP. We still give service to all who come in asking for services, but our outreach focus is for Latino community. So as you can see the numbers, 2018, 2019, we assisted 813 families in Clatsop County. This is a great number, and the number didn't happen overnight. It was efforts of doing outreach, of going to the canneries, going to community events to ensure that it's safe to apply and that it's something that's needed for your health of your family to be able to not only apply for organ health plan, but to make that initial appointment with your doctor. And we do have other workshops that focus on that to make sure those families have access to medical services. And our lastly and the most recent program is our family engagement. So, and that's just recently, 2018, we partnered with the 3 school districts, Astoria, Warrenton, Hammond, and Seaside, and to address the cultural gaps that exist between Latino families and the early learning and K-12 system. It's a huge project, and we realized a few months getting into that it was too much to take on. So we've been advancing in the other district, but we've been more progressing in our efforts here in Astoria. We have a group of parents, I would say of 30 parents who are actively participating. We have gone to the Early Childhood Lobby Day, and we are in constant communication with Melissa Linder, who's a director of curriculum and also superintendent. And right now, this year, we're focusing on creating our goals and organizing for the next school year. We hope that we bring the voices of the parents, engage them in a different way, that we can impact the academic success of their children and go beyond that. So throughout creating this presentation, I found this article and I made a copy. Yes. And it's actually OSU. So it's good we have an OSU representative here. So it was an article that looked at lessons learned from Oregon State University. It was from the article was made from Michigan State University, and it looked at 6 points. They created 6 points that they saw it was best way to engage the Latino community. And I feel that our programs and the way we approach things really consider all those 6 points. And I'm losing my voice, so. As mentioned, is to build that relationship and trust before starting a program. always offering English and Spanish, knowing that there is limitation in their ability to express themselves in English, understand in English. Programs should be included in family outreach approach, and the reason is because the culture of the Latinos is familia, which is we go together everywhere, and knowing that there's limited resource also, be prepared that when you have a meeting, you'll receive the family, parents, the children, and grandparents. Accommodate varied work schedules and limited financial resources, which I covered, especially that here in our area is very seasonal. And right now our efforts are not, we still meet, but we know that there's a lot of people that can't come to our meetings, so we go to them at the canneries. Use direct method of collecting data. And this was a very interesting point because, and it's something that we didn't think about, but we've used it, is that we don't use surveys. We we try not to use surveys. We use feedback as a group in discussions, brainstorm together. We saw that brings more ideas to the table versus writing a survey at the end of the meeting. And here at this article, it really explains that due to, I believe, both cultural and because of the some limitation on their educational level, it's easier for them to give feedback as a group versus individually. Understanding the cultural difference to create a welcoming atmosphere. So really, I think that loops back to building that relationship and connection.
I wonder, is it helpful to segregate by gender to get fuller feedback in a group, or is it just everybody all together works?
All together, yes. The only time we separate things is when we talk about health. And that's when we separate the conversations.
Okay. Have you made contact with the Census Bureau?
Yes, so we're in the process of
Good,
being part of
good,
that.
good.
And be part of educating our community, to be involved in the census, to take the census, and hopefully.
And to work in the census.
Hopefully be door knocking.
Because that's the most successful thing for the census.
Yes.
Is to have Spanish speakers, so
Yes.
lots of opportunities there.
Yes, I believe our director is working on that to make us one of the location here in our county.
Good, good.
The controversy of the census question permeated the Hispanic community. Have there been much discussion about the census question? Now, just recently.
Yes, so we did discuss it when Susan Bonamici came to visit us, and she did inform us that they were trying to remove it from that question, and thankfully it was, as I heard, but just making sure, reassuring people that it's okay to participate in the census.
Was that a significant concern within the community?
Yes, it was,
Is it resolved? Will we expect an undercount of Latino community?
Well, there's always an undercount in minorities and hard to reach populations, but we hope that every time we reduce that gap. And being involved and being part of the process, I think that's going towards that. And one of the ideas that I wanted to leave, and I didn't include in the presentation, is that you're more than welcome to come and be our guest speaker at one of our meetings. We meet, La Voz de la Comunidad meets monthly, the third Tuesday of every month at 6 o'clock. The Parent Advisory Meeting here in Astoria meets the fourth Thursday of every month. It may change a little bit depending on the holiday because we work with the school if it falls on a holiday. But if you reach us with enough time, then we can ensure that you have a space and to prepare our members that we will have a guest speaker. It's also at 6 o'clock. And the format is that for the La Voz de la Comunidad, the guest speakers have the first, I would say, 20 minutes, depending on the interest of follow-up questions. And then they move forward of discussing their projects. But the first 20 minutes or so, it's for the guest speaker. Yes, so it is.
I just wondered, do you have, if I stop by your office, do you have any written information in Spanish that I could hand somebody?
Our services.
Family?
Yes.
About the services?
Yes.
Good.
Yes, we do have pamphlets in Spanish and English, a lot of more material in Spanish. I will leave the PowerPoint presentation in paper, and also just about our services in Spanish and English, and the article that I mentioned. I think it's a really awesome read. I felt like really excited that it was really mentioning what we were doing. It's kind of like, oh, okay, we're going in the right direction. Yes. Oh, phone number is 503-325-4547. And that's the best way to reach us. And I also brought business cards, and I'll pass them around. Yes. Well, thank you.
Can I ask one more question?
Yes.
Do you have a sense of where Hispanic people live within the county?
We do know the areas that they mostly live here in our county, but we don't know where's the more dense population. When we do canvassing or door knocking, we go to Emerald Heights. There's the apartment complex close to that river, the smaller bridge. I forgot
the new apartments?
No, the right across of them.
The old
Yes, and there's other apartments complex around there. And Seaside, there's a few streets that we know that we go door knocking and give information.
What about Hammond and Warren?
Hammond and Warrenton are a little bit more tricky, but we have a few members that live in a park trailer, so we know that. So the way that we get a lot of the information is that we have membership. Every year when they do their taxes and receive some services, we gather all their family unit, their income, and their address. So we have a database where that we know where our members live. And right now I think our members are up to closer to 400 members. And that could cover, as I mentioned, the 5 counties. And we have other programs that we engage with our community, and we always gather their information.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much.
Quick comment?
Oh, yes.
So a little bit about what our job is looking at the comprehensive land use plan and updating the various sections on it.
Okay.
And there's 18 different goals, and some of them are kind of broad with land use planning and forestry and natural resources, and a whole bunch of others have to do with oceans. But there's some in the middle that you and the Hispanic community, like everybody else, might be particularly interested in. So if any of these strike you as being something that you're interested in, this would be the reason why we would want to encourage you to have people connect with this connection to us. And one, air, water, and land quality, so water quality or air quality with folks. Natural disasters and hazards, if there's a particular interest, this would be the place to kind of get that, or in the water. Recreational needs, The economy, diversifying the economy of the state is something here, as well as housing is
Yes.
another issue. I suppose that rings true. And transportation, goal 12.
that's a big
So
one.
transportation, housing, diversity of the economy are things that might be of particular interest. And so those would be the ones, if anybody's interested in that, we can talk. Wonks are us again for people who have that kind of interest. Thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
I guess I'm next.
Thank you, Maritza. Yes.
My presentation is not very long. Okay, once again, my name is Viviana Matthews, and I'm the interim director at Clatsop Community Action. So every county has a community action agency, which receives federal, states, and private grants. Everyone is aware of that, correct? All right. So we are located right across the street, 364, but we have two other different locations. Our Astoria office, as I mentioned, is right across the street. We also have an office at Providence Seaside Hospital, and we also manage the Regional Food Bank, which is located in Warrenton. So what we do is we do a lot of information and referral services to low-income recipients. We also do a lot of different supported housing programs, energy assistance, and one of the housing programs, so I'm going to talk a little bit about the housing program, which is such a high in demand in low-income families. We receive fundings for 5 different housing programs through federal grants. We also have 8 housing programs through state funding. We have partnerships for housing programs with the Northwest Oregon Housing Authority, DHS, which is Department of Human Services, and CBH, Clatsop Behavioral Health. And we also receive fundings from the state under State Homeless Assistance Program, and all the 90% of the monies that we receive, we pass to shelters here in Clatsop County. We have 3 shelters that we're passing money through. One is Helping Hands, the other one is the Harbor, and we are going to be passing monies to the Warming Center here in Astoria. And we also own the Hilltop apartment complex, the one by Peter Pan Market. Yes. Yeah, we own those blue buildings, yeah. And we, not only we own them, we manage them, but we also case manage every single tenant if they wish to. We have tenants there that are tenants from Hilltop for over 10 years. So, and the rent there is very low comparing to the rest of the market, which 2 bedrooms about $600. That's unheard of in Clatsop County.
So is that the wraparound services?
That's a wraparound services, yeah. And then last fiscal year, we just ended on June 30, we assisted 470 households in Clatsop County, close to $300,000 on financial assistance. And when somebody comes in to ask for rental assistance, we don't pay directly to the client, we pay directly to the landlord. And we we have a requirement list, and one of them is for them to have a contract. With the Energy Assistance Program, we have 5 different fundings, including the Woodlot Program, which is a partnership with the Sheriff's Office here in Clatsop County. And last fiscal year, we helped as you can see, 3,600 households were 3,600 households were assisted, and that's the amount for all those 3,670, $404,000. And that helps with electric bill, gas bill, furnace, and all of that. One of the very popular program that we do have is the personal care pantry. Is, as you know, or probably know, that the SNAP benefits does not pay for personal care, such as shampoos and toothbrushes. So we do have that program in our office. And last year we helped 2,100 with $4,000. And we do not receive any funding to run that program. So that is pure donations.
So if a person wanted to bring, we could bring something to
Yes,
the office?
we do. We accept everything to our office. Yeah. And sometimes we do receive monetary donations, and it goes straight to the personal care pantry. Yeah. We also, as I mentioned before, we do run the regional food bank, and we receive fundings through Oregon Food Bank, and we distribute to many different partners. So it's the regional food bank in Warrenton is very much like the umbrella. So we have the regional food bank, and then we have partner agencies that receive fundings or receive food from the regional food bank here in Clatsop County. So for instance, the St. Vincent de Paul, per se, they purchase some of the food from our regional food bank at very, very low cost. Yeah. I believe it's like $1 for £6 for $1 in those regards, yeah. So last year, emergency food bank and produce boxes, we distributed 22,000 and to 65,000 individuals. That's a little bit of, not a little bit, a lot duplicated number. And meals, there were a little bit over 86,000 meal sites. Backpacks is the backpack program. Everyone is aware with what the backpack program is?
Pack those backpacks, that's the most fun ever.
So every child goes home with a backpack on the weekend with essential items for them to have, like peanut butter, jelly.
They cook themselves.
Yes.
Yeah.
And we distributed over 1.6 million pounds last year.
How are we playing area?
What was that?
How many counties is that?
That's only in Clatsop County.
Just in Clatsop County? Wow.
Yeah.
What's the
Because
primary?
we only have
funding source for that?
37,000
So
people.
I'm glad you asked about the funding source. The housing department and also the energy assistance department, 92% comes out of grant writing, the fundings that we receive. The food bank, it's the opposite. And then we have about 10%, less than 10% volunteer or donations. The food bank, it's quite the opposite. 97% it's managed through donations, and the rest is grant writing. So all of our numbers from the monies from the regional food bank, it's all 100%, most of it is donations. Yeah. And we're talking about the donations, the dollar that you leave at Fred Meyer's to corporations, all of that, yeah.
Well, and we bought food too.
Yes.
We would go to Costco. Ladies would go to Costco and buy food or get donated food, and we'd pack those backpacks, and we had fresh vegetables for the kids to take home, and just protein, everything that they could use, the little yogurt squeezy things.
Right.
It was way good fun.
I have a question. When you do go to some of these retail big boxes, do you pay retail or do they give you a discount?
So, okay, so then we don't buy our food from the retail stores. We buy them from from Oregon Food Bank. The retail stores, like Fred Meyer's and Walmart and Costco, have this great program that is called the recovery program, the produce recovery. Whatever they don't sell, they donate back to the regional food bank, and we distribute.
So we were just community volunteers. We're just lady do-gooders, you know, and it was just great. It was fun to come together. There would be between 6 and 12 of us, and we went to the food bank. They went shopping at other places. We bought stuff. We brought it. We packed it up, and the kids, we took it to the schools, and the kids took it home for the weekend.
Yeah. And then what we do yearly is the Project Homeless Connect. I don't know if anybody knows about that, but one of the, for us to receive fundings from the state and the federal, we are required to count our homeless or nearly homeless population in the county and provide a number. And this number is very public. You can go into Oregon Housing Community Services and find what the homeless population is in Clatsop County. So then we are required to count the homeless, and that's how we get our funding for the next 2 years. So every year we do a Project Homeless Connect, that we connect all the people who are experiencing homelessness to different agencies such as employment, Lower Columbia Hispanic Council, you name it, they're all in there. So we provide that service. And as I say, point in time count, we count all the homeless like everywhere else is required to be counted the last week in January. And then we are taking that lead for Clatsop County. And we also publish the resource guides. I don't know if you are familiar, I brought some of those too.
Is the point in time count, is that a normal function of CCAs?
Yes,
Okay.
that is something that we are required to do.
Okay.
To be able to keep receiving fundings through the state and federal government. Yeah. So that was it, short, sweet, lots of information, no pictures. Yes.
Thank you very much.
You're very welcome. So we are right across the street. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to come and visit us. Thank you. Yes.
So I have a question. To get people involved maybe in unstable housing situations, do you think that there's a way that we can reach out
Yes.
and try to get them involved?
So we do have, as I mentioned, we do have about close to 15 different housing programs, from one-time rental assistance up to permanent housing programs. And we do have about 100 households who are under case management, continuous case management, and we will not have any issues whatsoever to contact them and see if they want to be involved. Absolutely. 325-1400.
I may be confusing with other programs, but I've worked before with people who were waiting on a list to get housing assistance. How, is that you? And
So
how
we
long is the
don't
waiting
have,
list?
we don't have a wait list, but North Oregon Housing Authority does.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's.
Yeah, what we do, we have an interest list. We do an assessment on anybody who's looking for housing who is homeless, because we are required to have that list, that interest list.
Yeah.
And once we have an opening, we see who is going to be matching that housing program that we have. Because we don't want to house somebody who just need one-time rental assistance into a permanent housing program.
Yeah.
We want to make sure that the permanent housing program is for somebody who's been chronically homeless, somebody who needs more than just one month rental assistance. It needs wraparound services.
Okay, just because
Yeah,
I know
that's
the
NOAA.
waiting list can be 2 years.
The wait list for NOAA, it's over, no matter what people, well, maybe I shouldn't say. But it's over 2 years, probably double that.
Yeah. People often their situation.
Well, the wait list for NOAA, North Oregon Housing Authority, it's not even open to Clatsop County yet. Well, thank you for having, yes, you have a question?
I'm really glad that you approached this from a number of angles. Do you have a feeling for the percentage of population you were not able to reach?
So what I can tell you is, I'm a number person. So I can tell you a number of people that come into our office and were not able to be receiving services because of lack of funding or lack of opportunity. And it's about 30%. Last year we saw 15,000, we did 15,000 services in 1 year. So people come in for information referral, housing assistance, rental assistance, energy assistance, you name it.
Could you briefly describe categories of homelessness?
Yes. So we have, so I have to speak from the state point of view, I guess. So there are different kind of homelessness, right? Chronically homeless is somebody who's been homeless for over a year, has a disability, either mental or physical disability. And then we have also non-chronically homeless, just regular homelessness. And well, when we just did the count in 2018, Clatsop County homelessness surpassed Yamhill County by about 20%. Yeah. I would hate to give you a number without having it in front of me.
So how many categories are there?
So how many categories of homeless? So it's about four different categories of homeless. So chronically homeless, DV, somebody who is experiencing domestic violence. Fleeing domestic violence is considered homeless under the federal regulation. And also youth are counted as separate, and under 25 years old.
I know it's impossible to speak with a broad brush about, because I presume every homeless person has their own story.
Yes.
I'm thinking of John Waddell.
Yeah.
I'm interested in engaging with the same question that Todd, that when we did the housing study, there was no interest in the homeless issue. There was no, from what I could gather, there's an attitude of, why would we want a homeless person involved in this process? What do they have to contribute? What do they know, have to share? And there's such an incredible mental gap between the person without a home and the public system that's supposedly addressing housing. You know, and I've seen it from the top ranks of my colleagues in planning. You know, I know there are great studies about involving homeless people in the process.
Right.
And tried to bring this sort of thing up in our county charter review. Absolutely no interest in broaching the topic. You know, so it's an interesting, you know, you can't simply say, you know, well, we have 4 categories.
Right.
Because you have that many thousands of individual situations. And I'm grateful that you have a better feel for it than probably anyone else here in the room.
Well, but I've been doing this for close to 20 years too. So.
Thank you, and don't give up, because no one gives a damn.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate all your efforts. I really do. Thank you.
Well, Robert, I just want to acknowledge you for your persistence and perseverance, because you keep on being involved, keep on raising this issue, and hooray and well done to bring you forward so that this group can engage in that. It's an essential part of having a healthy community.
Right. Thank you.
Is there something on your website that chronicles whatever the latest housing survey was?
Yes, our website is pretty up to date. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
Viviana, you and Maritza, I'm sure you've looked at the agenda, but we are talking about things to do with community engagement today, and if you can both stick around and lend more input. It's been great to hear about the programs and things and your list of ways to engage more effectively, but any ideas that come up as we discuss, we'd appreciate it.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Gail, is that the extent of staff presentations for today?
Yeah.
Okay. And so are we safe to move on to discussions among the group? Great. So if you'll note on your agendas, we have a variety of discussion points to explore today. I'm inclined to take them one by one in the order that they're presented.
I'm inclined to offer you in the opposite direction. I have one from the very bottom. You can give it to me.
Okay.
In about 1 minute.
1 minute. Well, we can start with that as there's a request from the group with no objection from anyone else. let's go.
It's absurd that this is even a suggestion, but I'll give you the reason why. And I'll pass this on to Gail in a minute. Open record regarding strings attached to grants. All agreements with the county related to any grant from any public or private entity to the county shall be openly disclosed. The county shall make no quid pro quo agreements promising in advance any outcomes from any public deliberative process that are required to take place prior to any such decision. And you can clean up the language. What I'm talking about is when, for example, the Department of Defense funds a joint North Classic Plains joint land use study, and there is an agreement as to what the outcome will be, but that is not a public document. And it's guaranteeing what the outcome will be before there's a public process, which is totally undermining the citizen involvement goal number one. Less disgusting, but common, is ODOT, in many of its grants, will give money so long as the recipient implements a particular plan. And I like ODOT, but I don't like this quid pro quo, and especially when it winds up undisclosed in the public process, and that's my minute. And I'm passing that on, and feel free to correct the language.
And Gail, can you make that language available to the rest of the group?
All
Thank you.
handouts from both the Columbia Society and the Philippine Council and
Thank you, Robert. So, does anyone want to discuss Robert's suggestion, or do we want to wait for that language to come around to the rest of us? What's the preference of the group on this?
I have a question.
Sure.
And I remember what Robert was referencing, because it was the Camp Ilea study, which really was sort of run by the federal, by the folks who hang out at the Camp Ilea. And there was, from my view, which is not exactly the same as Robert's, but I saw everything he saw. Sort of they knew what they wanted to say, and while participation was asked for, it was not welcomed or listened to.
They had to do the study 2 times because it was so abominable the first time.
Yeah, and we could get it down to we could spend the whole day on that. But I am curious, I can see an issue here in Astoria right now, having the Uniontown area, where ODOT is quite involved. It would be interesting, I have no idea if there's any, close your ears because this could be an ex parte contact. I'm curious if there in fact is something that also is, say, expected by the state before that plan is even adopted, because I don't remember who's financing it. Some state money is coming in.
Routinely they state that it is, here's the money to implement the lowest revenues in the era plan.
Well, you and I could,
No, it's exactly that.
Anyway, I think that is, that's intriguing, and I'll see what I can find out.
Okay, thank you. Any other input on this item?
So, may I?
Sure.
So Robert, having worked with you and Jan for several years, it's lovely to be part of the discussion, because I think the thrust is that what we're looking for is a process that is truly open and that asks questions in service of getting real data input, real public opinion, and then molding that somehow into a public policy that's reflective of the people in the place. Is that the thrust of what you want with what you're asking?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Just translating round for the world.
But in light of the fact that after that happened, up the food chain governmental entity went around that and did what they wanted pretty clearly. And we have a lot of federal entities at the mouth of the Columbia, and it might not be the only case where a state or federal entity will have a desired outcome that might be counter to what local kind of values expressed. So I saw that as the overall kind of warning.
I think that the young lady to my right, the young octogenarian, ran into this simply on trying to have the Port to Sea Trail follow an organic path rather than a sharply rectilinear path. And I think she ran into that we're in a war on terror, and we have no business telling the military how to do this.
I even forgot about that.
Well, but it comes up on, gee, why don't we have a merged stoplight at Patriot Way and 101? Oh no, I can't possibly think of that. It's close to home that if there were an earthquake, oh no, you may not come over the dune, you have to come through the front entrance. You know, there are lots of funny interruptions to the public process.
Which becomes disheartening, at the least.
Well, yeah, and there isn't really a way to say we're going to trump the federal government or the state government. But to the extent that we can, I'm putting myself in your group, the extent that we can craft public participation policies in a document like this that mitigate that impact, I think that's a good cautionary note to take, given the constraints of our authority.
In some ways, you two can trump. Now, pardon my use of that verb.
I have a question about Goal 1. The discussion on Goal 1 today, is this the discussion that we're going to be having on Goal 1, and will we not be having another?
That's really at your discretion. We can discuss it as often and put it on the agenda every time, or we can continue discussing it at your next meeting. But whatever is the consensus of the board.
We had our first meeting down the Southwest Coastal, and it was just a week ago. And we're given the Goal 1 documents at that time, so we haven't had a chance to even look at them hardly.
Right, so what will happen is we're trying to gather input right now, and there are the worksheets, if anybody filled theirs out and brought them with, and you'll do yours next month for Southwest. But then we will take all those pieces of input as staff and then put together a draft of a revised Goal 1 that then goes back out to all the different committees.
So this is an ongoing process?
Oh, yeah. That's why it's 33 months.
Thank you for the question, Todd. I do want to ask permission from the group up front. One of the things that I'll note on the agenda is that we have a series of bulleted items to discuss, and then we have combined public comment at the end. My preference is to have public comment germane to the item that we're talking about. So if I could invite public comment, like the comments from Leanne even, our public commissioner, to the group at the time when we discuss the bullet point is my preference. Yes. Would the group be amenable to that suggestion?
Yes. Even more than that, in the friendliness of seeking public involvement, I think it'd be a great courtesy, as long as it's not too abused to your taste, to let them come early, like letting someone in line in front of you at the bank, that they don't have to wait through an hour of bickering to be able to introduce their cogent thought that we'd want to hear from.
Sure. That makes sense to me. I'll probably ask for comment both at the beginning and end. Okay, so I'd like to go ahead with the first question on the list, which is, what are the strengths and weaknesses of the county's current citizen involvement activities? My preference would be to get input from staff characterizing the current citizen involvement activities so that we can have an educated discussion about it, especially with the members of the public who haven't had the packets to review the same way we have. So if you could just give a brief overview.
So basically, when the comp plan was originally adopted in 1979, 1980, there was a very similar process where we had citizen advisory committees in all the 6 different planning areas. When that process was completed, 5 of those committees disbanded because they had completed their purpose. The Southwest Coastal continued until 2017, I believe, when the County Board of Commissioners dissolved it. And so from basically the time of adoption in 1980 of the comp plan, the Planning Commission has served as the citizen, I always use the wrong term, but basically the Committee for Citizen Involvement, CCI. Did I get it right, Lisa? Okay. And so they have been our main public gathering organization. And traditionally, our outreach efforts are, put a legal ad in the daily historian because we're required to do it. We post agendas on the website, and we mail out public notices for certain types of hearings and things like that. That's pretty much the extent of what we do. I'm speaking only for the planning department here. As part of this larger process, going back and updating the comp plan, we did put together a public involvement plan. We got some feedback on that actually on Tuesday at LCU. But we reached out more, we've reactivated our Facebook page, we've got dedicated web pages for each of the citizen advisory committees and the whole process. We have email lists, we have standard mailing lists, we do public service announcements on KMUN, we do the display ads and the legal ads in the paper, we do a weekly press release that goes out to the radio stations. I know I'm missing something somewhere, but so it's very traditional, but what we're looking for input from everybody here is how can we do better and what's on the horizon in the future that we haven't considered as staff and thought about, or ways to reach out to populations that we don't traditionally reach out to.
I have a response to that. Southwest Coastal Advisory Committee was disbanded in 17, and in substitute for the public input, the Planning Commission is suggested. My understanding is the Planning Commission is an appointed commission, and appointments historically have been to people who are thinking consistently with staff and the organization of the county. At least that's my interpretation of it. And so it's a very poor representation of public opinion and input. It's a rather highly selected group that doesn't reflect, I think, the public input. And so the best thing I could suggest is that we have ongoing groups that represent our 6 districts that continue not only through this goal setting part of the planning, but also through the rule setting part, so that it can be consistent with public feelings about their communities and their goals and their realization of those goals. So that's my...
One of the disadvantages of my being alive is that I've been here since probably the creation of land use planning. My mother was the first female county planning commissioner, just as an example. The idea that the county or the planning commission was identified as the citizen involvement committee for the county was actually to eliminate public involvement
my feeling.
It was explicitly so. There used to be and that's how I got started in this in 1993, with the Clatsop County Comprehensive Plan and Citizen Development Committee, the CIC. It was countywide. It was not to eliminate the fact that South Coast had an advisory committee, but it was less rigorous. It was friendlier. It was just people who had an interest in it. It wasn't a politically litmus test. Are you against planning? If you are, we'll put you on the planning commission. Which is how it was for about 15 years. So I think there's good reason to support some kind of, I don't really like the chop them up, because it's very hard in Clatsop County to find anyone who cares about land use planning. I think to slice and dice and say, wait, you can represent Jewel, but you can't. It's hard to have 6 committees when you only have a few people that care about this stuff. So I'd love to see one that has 40 people who, when they can, will come from Napa, will show up from Jewel, but and give their input, but not be expected to struggle with don't speak because we're trying to control what happens here.
I'll throw in just a...
I have a suggestion for this committee, is that I thoroughly enjoyed the presentations that we've had today, and I would suggest maybe reaching out to, say, 2 organizations every month to give short presentations, and let them know that we'd be interested in two things. One is to know a little bit about their organization, but also for them to focus on some of the things that concerns them for our process. So not only do we become educated, but also there is an automatic tie to the organization, and hoping that we can continue that kind of relationship through the course of the planning process.
Could I say something back to this?
Sure.
Because, and I've just been here since '94, but I have been here from '94, paying attention to land use issues because I can't help it. And I observed what I thought went on with the South County, and I think, and this is, since I had to struggle as a planner with getting people involved, and I used to have a committee for an area of 35,000 people, that maybe I could get 30 people to come to a meeting once a month, for a year, to work through what they wanted. The danger is because people self-select, and I think this, and I am fond of a couple of people I know who were down in that committee. They are good souls, and we still correspond and so on. But the danger is, I think in that instance, it became the hoop you had to jump through before you could even get to the planning commission. And if people there were ruling on whether somebody could build or not build, or this or that, they really, it became another authority, albeit without any real import, but there was and that's not the word I want. It was premature, it would be, or something. They didn't have the authority, but you had to get their clearance in order to come to the planning commission, and I could see that was a problem, and there was a problem of equity, that if you have a sub-planning committee in each area, what's allowed in one area is not allowed in the other, and planning commission at least has to hear all the geographic areas, and hopefully they treat people equitably. I mean, I was on the planning commission, and I'm certainly not of the, you know, I am one who speaks up and disagrees. So, and also just the reality, you're gonna have a group meeting regularly to help decide whether what is appropriate for their neighbors to do, you need to have a staff person there. And have.
Why is that?
Because it's a governmental function.
Can the people themselves take notes on what they do? I've seen that happen often.
Oh, I know, but who's reporting back, you know?
Whoever.
I'd like to respond.
Anyway, I think there's a difficulty there that has to be recognized. And there is an equity situation that you may not have the same number of people who want to be involved in Jewel's the wrong example, because there probably would be, in, you know, wherever, than you do in another, and so it's a real balancing act.
There are a couple of points I'd like to challenge. First off, I was chairman of the Southwest Community Advisory Committee for 3 terms, re-elected twice, and very much aware of what we, as a committee, did. I've heard these arguments against us that we kind of became some kind of an authority. We were always advisory. We did have staff there, and I think staff is good to have there, because we working with staff, and we were trying as much as we possibly could to help people navigate their way through the community planning process. We weren't there to stop people from doing things. We did, on occasion, insist that the county pay attention to their own rules when they were not to, just for whatever reason, I have no idea.
And I agree with you on that.
So I feel that committee, and if other communities were willing to do it, serves their public, their constituents very well. And if you were involved in this challenge to that committee, and you attended the meetings that we had in Arch Cave, and took a tally of the number of people that supported keeping the committee, I think we had 2 people out of like 30, 25 maybe, who objected to it. And the arguments they had were very much like what you just quoted, that this committee has too much power. We had no power at all. We were advisory. And it just was a terrible mistake to dump that committee. There's a bunch of people that were self-selected, true, because they cared, because they had some background and faith in planning.
And they were protecting the environment, really.
And protecting the environment a great deal, and it's very important to that community. So it was reflecting the community's concerns.
That issue about staff was clearly because it was used as an excuse for not having a committee, because it costs too much money to have staff present.
I'm aware of that, but the state wants us to have public input. And public input implies that there's going to be some cost. And so it's important that we have staff there. And damn it, we pay for it.
So maybe I could say something about this, because I've been in the middle of this, and I want to thank you, Todd, for your service, for your passion, for your devotion, for your skill, for all of that. And I will tell you that there was a wide divergence of opinion, and people were afraid to come forward because they felt they'd be retaliated against by neighbors. I mean, that neighborhood political thing can be very challenging. I don't think you personally were interested in doing that, but I've had people tell me that projects cost an extra $35,000 because of what happened in that committee. And so all I will say is I want to keep the best part of that committee, because there was a great deal of good that was done. There was a great deal of protection of the environment. There was a great deal of what I would call ground truthing to hold staff in Astoria knowledgeable. I'm not going to say they were held accountable. I will say that staff in Astoria were held knowledgeable by neighborhood experts. But where I think things went south was when a departing staffer inserted language that gave that committee quasi-judicial authority. So if I could just speak as a kind of a wonkish kind of person, if the phrase quasi-judicial authority or that concept is not included, but it's really what that committee was at the beginning before things evolved into something else. It was neighbors really helping and advising neighbors. I think that was always your intention. I think sometimes it went south. And I don't mean that in any way to be critical or disrespectful, so please hear me from my heart with that. My hope is that all over Clatsop County, we have the best of citizen involvement, which is to be as broad and as compassionate and as positive as we can possibly be, and really do justice to the people in the place. And so I hope that the rules can sort of hew to the middle and have sideboards that have a process that accepts, that welcomes, that elicits citizen participation, and then uses it in a way that is equitable, that really treats people fairly. Because land use issues are the most personal and the most contentious, except for dogs, right? Dogs and land use. So how do we be good neighbors to one another? Because I'm convinced that you're a good neighbor wherever you are.
Just in one response, the quasi-judicial aspect of it was put upon the committee by the county. We were required to follow those rules and did so as much as I know. And as for having added cost, I just would like to know what project and how that cost was added.
I'll be happy to share that with you off the record.
I find that hard to believe.
Yeah, I've got public comment.
Is it okay to shift over to a slightly different?
Sure, I think.
I think we probably aired that.
Yeah, sorry, I have to leave. There's an immigrant who recently got sworn in as a U.S. citizen, and there's a celebration, so I have to run.
Yeah.
But the homelessness issue, I really appreciate that. And the public notices and whatnot, homeless don't see those things. I'm on the board of the Warming Center and Filling Empty Bellies. The Homelessness Solutions Task Force here in Astoria has no homeless representative on it. But there are ways to get the input. And there is a community organizer that was able to empower the homeless to round up 200 plus signatures for the extension of the Warming Center's conditional use permit. The 2017 count was 680 homeless in the county. That's the highest rate in the state, 1.7% of the population. And Viviana was kind of hesitating with some stats. I think the count's much higher than that. So she has to be unwilling to go to what the real numbers are. But the homeless are around. My wife took one of the homeless to speak to the mayor when she has the former mayor. So they're willing to provide input, but boy, they're not going to read the notices. But there are ways to improve.
I'll just add something on, and I'm not sure whether this is a good or bad thing, but there is going to be a walk around tonight, starting at 7,
Right.
meeting in front of the Maritime Museum, kind of to take what was done to get rid of some of the drug stuff years ago. But this is to walk around and just talk to people who are out there, if there are people out there, and see how they're doing and what their situation is.
Thanks for sticking your
So I'm on the list if somebody wants to contact me, but we can get homeless involved if you want.
Thank you.
We'll need your input.
Sorry to rush.
Gail, can I ask a question, or maybe to folks who were around at the time? So we've got explicit language in the county goal set about continuous citizen advisory councils. And obviously that was not paid attention to at some point along the line in 80, is it right?
It was in the original adoption, and then I believe it was around 83, after the 506 committees had expanded, they revised that language to point out that only Southwest.
What process did they disband by? Did they just stop showing up?
I don't know.
I think the county disbanded them.
But in '93, there still was a countywide
Yeah.
citizen involvement committee. They had a lot of people, more than 30 people on it. And I have summaries of what they decided, and it's always jobs, housing, quality of life.
You know, to go along with that, Robert and I set up a whole rule chart.
Thank you both for coming today.
Thank you.
Committee, and usually every 5 years, there's two counties that are actually doing it presently, one is the River and the other is Classic County. And we had several months of having meetings, looking at what we had. Instead of every 5 years, last time, previous 5 years, they decided that we should go for 10 years. And the long and short of what we came up with was the structure that presently exists for our county here in Classic is fine the way it is. We made no changes to it. So if, and we're going back 20 years, if we did have representations in certain segments unique around our county because of the diverse environment to deal with, and certain issues that really the strengths and weaknesses are almost answered by the fact that we didn't want to change it for 20 years, number one. Now, when you look at number two, where you're looking at emerging technologies, because things have just skyrocketed in so many avenues as far as technology goes, these integrate in ways, and Andy, I agree with you, I think it makes good sense to keep representing committee from various entities in some sort of structure, giving the uniqueness of input going forward. Now, the problem I see is because if it's not an incorporated city, that information, as I observed in March K just a few weeks ago, is set up to certain people in the committee that get that. That isn't available to everybody online, but they seem to be a pretty organized group there in March K. But we have only a few people who were basically involved, who really did much or talked much about that. And the uniqueness is we never got to that point of what they really are. And so I think a collaboration, communication between the non-incorporated area and what the incorporated areas already have by their very nature is something to look at also.
Thank you. Any other thoughts from the public or from the group on this topic, on this first topic?
Well, honestly, I'm trying to figure out what first topic we're still on.
So this was,
To be quite frank with you.
so this is meant to be a discussion right now about strengths and weaknesses of the current citizen involvement plan.
Right, I was just making sure if we're on only one of these bullets.
I know that we've spread out.
And these were actually to help guide the conversation, but you do not have to follow them one by one or address all of them, or if you guys incorporated into a bigger discussion, that's fine.
I do have some things I'd like to share with you guys. So I didn't give a ton of my background, but one of the things I did say is I worked at Riley for 20 years, and I also a firefighter, my degree at Classic Community College, one of the first females to graduate from there. I was on the Astoria Fire Department years ago. Born in Oregon and raised here, own a home here, built a house here. So I've had a lot of eclectic kind of planning stuff. I was operations NCO for a guard unit full time. So dealing with these structures.
Had you applied for the classic plan advisory?
I did not.
Oh, I said your name.
Oh, that's okay. But the point to all that is that when I hear people, what I struggled with in the Guard is kind of the same thing that you guys are all talking about, is that how do you get people to know what's going on? And half the time they're frustrated because they didn't know what was going on, and I'm guilty of that. Here I'm a very organized individual involved in lots of different places, and I didn't know about this until someone pointed out to me 2 days ago. So I showed up yesterday, and I showed up here, and I'm like, man, I really wish I had had a chance to have a seat at that table. But I know that I missed the boat. Okay, so other people get a little frustrated, right? You know, and they get angry that they missed some of the public comment times or things like that when they're doing land use or things. But I realize that there's a process that happens. I guess sharing that, the technology is huge. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, I know it gets a little crazy.
Newspapers.
Even newspapers. I still subscribe to the Daily A. Actually, my mom and I kind of share it. She gets the paper version, I use the password, so we kind of, you know, so it works out. And I use it a lot, and I share a lot of that with other people. The Facebook groups are great, and so almost as you guys are talking about, like these groups and these entities, you know, either Arch Cape or Swenson or wherever, forming those outreaches, technology is just huge. I mean, it's really a way to reach out, but it also is a buffer too, because people don't want to come physically sit here. And what I've experienced and I share sometimes, what I've been sharing with other people is this is a different experience than just seeing it on Facebook or seeing me post some of the comments, or not comments, but like, hey guys, come see this. So it's getting people to come into these stores and start to understand. So sorry, I'm throwing a bunch of stuff out there because there's things I thought of as people were saying them, but one of the things I want to say, like thought Riley at you then, is there's something to be said about finding the right person to get you in the door, to get a tour, to get the right people. Because sometimes what I experienced being there is we had a new regime come in and really severed what used to be a good neighbor policy.
Yes.
Most of my career was like, we belong to, number one's a state agency, or state.
Honey mushroom.
Yeah, I used to ride, you know, out there with my kids on our bicycles and stuff, and I kind of was an entity myself out there for 20 years. So, but as that changed, I saw that we were not as good neighbors as that outreach used to be. You know, we used to, I don't know, we just had a better communication. I used to let church groups use the armory, and I would just be the one to be there. Well, now they want to charge them $100 an hour, and I'm like, yeah, but I'm still, I was there. I didn't have to charge them. So things like that got a little wonky, and so I'm sorry that was the case, but there's still room to get past that. And I hate to sound bad when I say this, but the people that come in, generally, the top people come in from somewhere else. They're not locals here. They're not like the other hundreds that work there and live here that want to have this kind of input and say and different things going on. So I think there's something to find those liaisons to those groups. For instance, one of the big ones right now, Timber Unity, is 53,000 people. And whatever someone's opinion is, it's amazing. There's, you know, so there's a huge group of people that are like, hey, I want to be involved. What do I do? And we're trying to educate them how to be involved. There's other women's groups, different things like that. So I think that, you know, just hopefully that focus can be in this change, or whatever changes take place to this involvement. So forgive me for kind of just throwing all those out there at you guys.
You have to live inside or outside city limits?
I am inside. I am right above what used to be Fisher Ready Mix. It's Northwest Ready Mix now.
I'm just trying to point out this stupid distinction as if someone does not care about the county because they're going to try city limits.
Yeah, we come from a place in this area that it doesn't have a distinction so much. Is what you know, most people, I grew up, you know, my logging family, fishing family, other points we made. Fishermen, big deal. Many of them will never be able to sit at the table with you guys because they're fishing. My significant other's in Alaska for 6 months. Might not see him until November. No idea. But the point is, his family resides here. They have lots of land and properties here, but they will never be able to consistently be at this table with you guys. So some other things to consider as your outreach. You know, how do you reach those people?
Yeah, I think actually Maritza brought up a similar point about seasonal workers and their availability. And I think that that's something for us to very much keep in mind when we do open houses or public events, to try and schedule them as much as possible in parts of the season where workers are going to be available, and to do it in the evenings so that people can come, and to do things like provide childcare so that people can actually bring their family here.
Yeah, and another thing to point out, speaking about reaching the community, is that, as mentioned, building that trust. It doesn't have to be all you guys going to our meeting or to different spaces where people are already gathering. It could be just one representative going and introducing themselves and the work they're doing, and just getting that connection and inviting them to the bigger meeting or here. I think that initial contact is very important, and it is going outside the box of meeting somewhere else.
Actually, to continue on the same train of thought here, and maybe the county actually does this already, but I know they have a Facebook and an email group essentially, but to actually go out and contact these people to see if you could be part of their Facebook family and to ask them for key contacts to have them on the email list so that every time you send emails, you know you're getting a larger group of organizations, and even though you may be only contacting 2 or 3 people, or as many people in that group as you want, you're actually contacting many more with the hope that they can spread the word to their members.
The communication builds. Yeah. Logical. Yeah.
I still like to have more presentations.
I tend to lose track because to me it doesn't make a whole lot of sense, as to what parts of the county the comprehensive plan doesn't cover. And I presume it doesn't cover any of the incorporated areas. And it's kind of whose voices do we not want to hear with regard to the bioregion, our entire physical county. And there's some oddities that do we want to hear, do we count them as equal, someone like Jan who lives inside the city limits?
I thought I lived in Calhoun.
But there are these quirky issues. Here's somebody, the Chinook Nation representative lives in Astoria, for God's sake, but happens to care about Clatsop County.
Well, I look at this personally as seeking sound advice, regardless of the source. And I do think, I understand what you're saying, is that if somebody actually lives in the rural area, that they have more at stake. And I think that we should listen to that, but I'm looking personally for good ideas. Where they actually live, not as important as the ideas themselves.
It's creating an atmosphere that's open. By the definition of democracy, it means different input. So to create that atmosphere, I trust and will figure that you actually want to be as neutral as possible, enlightened as we can by input coming like today, going forward saying, okay, what can we do, what can we not do? Because in reading the section 1, there's an awful lot that talks about fed trickle down to state, state trickle down to county, county trickle down to what we're looking at right now. What's your influence? Questionable depending on the particular material, how it's presented, and who is going to help carry it forward. So with that spirit, that there's so much going on, that you have so much media overloading now with all the technology going forward. There's a lot of things that you all just need to stop, take a breath, and maybe meditate a little more, and just relax and listen. Listen to these people, wherever you are. We're still in the county, whether they have sidewalks or not. Go forward. And so I really like the idea of being open and moving around to different parts of it and listening to these specific areas.
So one of the things that I would be interested in sort of following up, especially with what Jim is talking about, is page 66 of this Putting the People in Planning booklet, they have a mention of Baker County and their planning department maintaining a list of contacts, essentially, constituency groups, individuals, people who have come to meetings, all of these things, so that my pipe dream would be anytime there's a quasi-judicial issue that's coming up, anytime there's a legislative issue that's coming up that has to do with land use planning in the county, that we send out a blast message to people who have shown interest or the community groups that might be affected, and try to actively court on a individual basis involvement from people. You know, I think the paper, the radio, Facebook, all of these things that are less targeted are great, but you know, developing relationships with people who will come back is going to get more people consistently at the table. You know, like I have a face that I associate with an organization now. That makes a difference. You know, so I'm more likely to go and talk to you all and create that bond over time. But we need to do that as a government. That's
And I'd like to spin off the idea of the list kind of geography independent. I mean, the geography CACs have value, there's pros and cons, but we also have these 18, 19 goals that are functional community interests. And so there's kind of that vertical cross with the geographic cross, and we can get too wound up in the geographic value. And in every geographic value, someone's going to care about hazards, for example. So another thing might be lists served by goal, and in the non-incorporated areas of the county, that could also be crosswalked by geography. And so people who have a passion about agricultural lands in whatever part of the county would be an expert or someone with value talking about that. So a way to enhance the geographic perspective with kind of a functional perspective. Other pros, I like there's a mandate for public involvement. That makes us sit here and do this, or we wouldn't. The 7-member planning commission, I think, is good. The fact that it's appointed was an interesting spin today on how that can go probably one way or the other, depending on the political winds of the day. CACs, pros and cons. It's interesting that all but the Southwest disbanded for some reasons. I imagine just attrition, and there was no LNG pressing issue at the time or something. But another con would be no dedicated funding. Again, the staff issue came up for the public involvement piece. So I guess those are my comments on that first time.
Jan?
Mine was, and this sounds like a jaundiced eye. But I've been an activist all my life, being quieted by the fact that I was a staff member for 25 years and couldn't open my mouth without representing the city I was working for, and now I'm not. But you have to recognize, and this has become very evident to me in this city, that those of us who are able to tolerate sitting through 2 or 3 hour meetings are few. And we pretty quickly get labeled, oh, we know what you're going to say before you even open your mouth. And, some of us just have thicker hides and we'll do it anyway. It's very hard to, maybe the fact that we're forming groups of people geographically that may retain an interest after this process. And maybe there's a way we can find to sustain that. I appreciate Patrick's thought that there are other issue-oriented things, but we can certainly get the information out there and hope that people will speak up. But my experience is that people show up when there's an issue that it affects them directly, and they fear they're going to lose something or gain something.
Yes.
And that's just the reality of working in government. But I think this is a noble pursuit, and it's incredibly thorough, and I'm really appreciating it. But we can, and I think the media now allows us ways to get through to people who might be interested in ways that just weren't possible 20 years, even 10 years ago. And that's great.
There used to be a statewide organization called Oregon Progress Board. It was killed off within the last year or two because it hadn't met for a long time, which is one of the more idiotic reasons to kill off one of the systems that was able to pull together at the Elks Hall or whatever 200 overeducated, interested community members every few years, because they knew they would be able to engage on any topic that made it a better community. And they weren't going to. It was have little gizmos where you could vote on something, there was instant feedback. And it was the kind of list that I wish you could say, oh, we have that list. Here are those people who cared. Pick a topic.
That rolls me into emerging technologies that we can utilize. Flash mobs, where we go to people, and another version is food carts. So the comp plan update food cart, roll it out to Sunday market, and Q&A, all questions will be addressed if not answered. And go to where the people are, and take those two various organizations. Chatting also the pub talks, there's 3 organizations that go to Fort George, just liquor people up and talk about comprehensive plan updates and put them right to sleep. I mean, get them all really excited. But so part of that is the old technology of face-to-face and going to people. I mean, the coming to meetings point is very well taken. For every one of us, there's 10 people that care just as much, but they got X, Y, and Z going on. So take it to folks and maybe something kind of effective or engaging like a food cart type thing. The county fair is coming up. It's hard to get, we chat about this, it's hard to get representation from the rural areas in particular. They show up at the fair for 3 days in a row. That would be another great place. Again, I think that food cart idea, here are the 18 goals, and the business of gizmos. I've used that at OSU where you can give your preferences using your cell phone, 1 to 5. Would you like to see a tsunami hazard overlay zone? And in real time, you get these anonymous, preferences of people in the room. It's that and a few beers, that's awesome right there. So the instant voter preference would be those technologies. And again, integrating the goals with the geographic areas. I don't know if there's a GIS for that, but those are my comments on that.
Could I just add one more thing?
Sure.
This room has cameras. This is a TV studio. We have a cable access channel. Now, they tell me nobody watches cable access, but once upon a time, I tried to get a consortium together of the county, the community college, the newspaper, and KMUN to develop content using this as a studio, because you can always put it up on YouTube. So I like Pat's face-to-face, because I think there's just something magical about being in face-to-face interactions. But we have the capacity to partner and to develop all kinds of content and pop it out over the internet so that it's accessible at people's convenience.
Could this be live streamed right now? Could the public be watching this right now, live streaming?
The back of her head.
We are not live streaming, but we are videotaping.
So the back of your head is being filmed as you speak.
The fascinating back of my head.
But the problem with that is then you have to go through the process of a week from now when it's finally posted to see the comments that 2 weeks ago influenced my decision yesterday.
True. So I do have something to say about this because I right now posted yesterday our last commissioner meeting that I attended because I had some things that concerned me and then there was some really great stuff that I didn't even know about that I was like, oh, this is interesting public comment. So I posted the whole 2.5 hours, but and instead of when I posted that there were 0 views, like I was the 1 view, and now it's 118 views. Yay!
You've been there 117 more times.
Right, I know, right? But the other thing I wanted to say is part of what fired me up was so Facebook Live. So it's different than just videotaping this. And I know, we've got the cameras, and that was great. But it is after the fact. Where Facebook Live, what happens, and people ask me tonight, and if I was like, hey guys, come sit with me and start my education in this process, and that's why I let Gretchen and her husband were here, and some other people really wanted to be here. But when they can't, because of the reasons we all know about, then the thing about Facebook Live is nice is you can ask questions right then too. So it's like, oh, okay, this is what this person, it might be some of the same things. So I think there's something to be said about that is having Facebook Live available. It's kind of difficult to manage it though, as far as you all sitting in this horseshoe.
There's a county technical person who probably set up some microphones this afternoon.
So one question I've got for, maybe this is for staff, but so I've got a bunch of things written down, but maybe I can segue from this. So one of the things that we read about a bit and that I think is an interesting concept is you all are not communication people by trade. You're planners, right? And we're shoehorning you into a marketing and communications role to make you do all this outreach to people in the county. Has there been discussion at the staff level, at the county management level, of having a communications person on staff, either within the planning department or say within the county office, to give professional input and direction to a communications program?
We do, the county does have a public information officer position. He does some of the press releases and things for us. We try not to burden him with everything. We have not discussed the topic of hiring a PR firm to handle our outreach.
And I'm more so thinking of a professional within the planning department who would be a communications professional. You've got a mandate to go ahead and communicate all of this to the county. I'm casting no aspersions on you. I want you to work at the highest level of your degree, which is probably not communications. So I think it would be prudent of us to spend money on someone who does this for a living. I think we're all spitballing what seem like good ideas, but there are people who are trained to do this for
Part
years.
of hiring a communications person for the county was to stifle communication, and channel it through the official line.
At a time like this, I would look maybe to Lisa to ask about what other communities do with regard to the kind of the more professional communications and marketing piece of some comp plan update like this. Is there a typical thing that counties do in-house or contract or just bootstrap it, or?
It's a little all over the board. And so, for example, so I'll stick with the coast because you don't want to be compared with Bend or not Portland. But so along the coast, it's been a while since there's been a kind of update that you all are going through. There's been a lot of updates to sections, maybe just to come into compliance with state laws if something's changed and they're bringing it up to the speed. The city of Mahala went through a comp plan update.
How about a county of about 40,000? What about a county about our size?
No, it has been a long time since anyone's opened up.
Let's say off the coast, statewide.
Oh, sure.
Whole county or something.
Larger jurisdictions are still required to because of the population threshold. But those are also, we're talking not 40,000, we're talking, 100,000, several 100,000. And they do usually hire out. A lot of work gets done in-house. There's consultants that make a business out of doing this type of thing.
Given our population and our staff size and the relative need, would you give any guidance on whether this is something that would maybe require a person or a contract, or what would
For
you
the
say?
outreach or the whole process?
How were you phrasing the question?
Well, so I'm thinking we've got a bunch of citizen advisory committees that can't find enough people, and I think part of that is a continuous education issue, that there's not a groundswell of awareness that this is happening, that it can happen, that people can have an impact, and so getting someone who's, in my head, whose job it is to inform the county broadly about, hey, there's this avenue for you to get involved and make a change in your community.
It's really about capacity and environment. I mean, that's what it comes down to. Your staff does a great job reaching out when they're working on projects, right? That's their job. They try to make sure that the people, at least that they're aware of, are familiar with what's going on. This is a really big effort that you're putting out there, and I think that your approach of meeting in the communities is a really good one. I think that may be where you can recruit folks to actually engage on a longer term basis. They take nurturing, they take love, they take time. There is money involved. I mean, even if it's just staff's time, it's money. It really depends on what each whatever it is that the issue is.
I'm not here.
Why defer a brow?
Well, I guess I'm not hearing that it is absolutely essential to have a high dollar marketing firm to kind of shepherd this through the county's communication process.
I kind of want to circle back around because I feel like there's some things being missed here. It's not so much about, like I do public affairs for Riley and for other, and then like if we had the big emergency that was going to be, that's my job, even though I did this other thing, and my degree is in marketing and business administration. So I get the marketing because it was so hard to always, to help people understand what we were, because we were the Army, right? To everybody else, we're going to take your children away and they're going to go here, and the Guard is so much different, and that's for a whole different topic. But the point is, it's very similar to what you guys are going through. It's like, what are we? And I don't think a PR firm would be what, I think it's like the Facebook Live thing. It has to be from the person that is the influencer out there. So like when we did have the rally at the Capitol, I just went on live, and I didn't mean to, I didn't expect to, and the first time ever, it was 40,000 people on the group. What the heck was I thinking? But it was good, and what it was is those people were hungry for this, at that time, that topic, this topic. So who you get is the people, the people that are watching it are hungry for what you are saying, and they'll come and go out of it. It's like a news feed, but it stays there indefinitely unless Facebook takes it down, so it won't get controversial. But they can go back and watch it again and see the comments and the questions as they came on real time. You know, like if you were conversing and someone asked a question and we get to ask it, somebody later will see that same question at that same time, and they, you know, they'll see the answers. And so there's that. The influencers out in the community, not necessarily the paid PR type thing, is what I think.
You're half the age of anyone.
I'm 41.
You're just a little bit over half the age. That's the last person I ever knew who gave a damn about working land use planning. You know, who actually, if you weren't even born,
right,
it would have got underway. Yeah. And it's hard, you know, I went to a gathering of people who've been involved for 40 years. Mm-hmm. And it was bemoaning that they take a whole education process starting from, you know,
right here. Yeah,
there,
exactly.
There, and you're almost beyond hope as far as we know enough to teach about these things. So I mean, I'm thinking it's great you're here, but now you're weird.
I know. Well, my background, well, here's the difference. I'm not starting as a young pie in the sky person. I dealt with regulation and fighting for my soldiers when it was like, it says here, you know, like we deal with land use stuff where you're like, yeah, but it's in black and white, so this is okay, even if I don't like it, I don't get to have an opinion, it was the policy, you know, like I dealt with that for so long, but I think you guys right now have a chance to like, there's a fire going on, and it's not a bad thing, it's actually a positive, uplifting, like people want to be involved, but if they don't find a place to fit in and be welcome, that's going to fizzle out, you know, like you were saying, you do have to feed it. And before I totally forget this and it falls out of my brain, to use one of your words, is what our Latino Council, something that came to my mind, and I risk ridicule in saying this. I really do, and I'm really sorry, but I think it needs to be said, because there's a population out there, just like the Latino community, who's fearful of coming in the doors of a government building. They're fearful for a different reason. There's a whole population out there that's fearful of standing up and saying, hey, I don't necessarily agree with an illegal immigrant, or I don't agree, because they're fearful of being thought of as racist or bigoted. And so in a couple ways, all I'm trying to point out here is that there is multiple groups that are fearful, not just the person that's fearful of ICE. I understand, my daughter's best friend is, you know, I mean, we have good friends in this community. And there's ways to go about that, but this other part of the community, many other ones, are fearful of just speaking their mind, kind of like was brought up about Arch Cape maybe. It's a similar situation, if you're going to be ridiculed. So I think a couple of you, I think you touched on it, down over here, I'm sorry, the names, that being open and not judgmental, that it is, you know, bringing those together, you guys being open armed to us, even in this dialogue, and when I go back and I'm like, oh my gosh, guys, and I'll take a video and I'll post it. I think even that is encouraging. That will encourage more people to come here and be like, oh, look, you don't have to wait till the end, sit quietly on your hands, but you also have to be appropriate and sit and let you guys have a discussion too. So.
It sounds to me like this is something that the county should think about. I'm not sure if there's enough work just for the comprehensive plan, even though we probably all would like to think that there is. but maybe the individual could also do something similar for the county commission meetings, as well as any other large-scale efforts that the county wants to has ongoing or maybe something in the future. Specialize in the more emerging technology aspect. That's what I'm really thinking about. It doesn't replace the more traditional public relations. There's still press releases that needs to be written and the like, but just something more along the lines of innovative ways of communicating with the public and various organizations.
So if I may, coming from Portland, there were a couple of different flavors of citizen participation. There were neighborhood associations. It goes back to Pat's point. There were neighborhood associations that were geographic. We also had departmentally specific budget and policy advice. So there was a Bureau Advisory Coordinating Committee, and there were representatives who came and talked about budget and policy issues all year long. Neighborhood associations met and discussed neighborhood livability issues all year long. So there was staff support for those. It was a robust system. Those things evolve and change. So what do we have the will to do? What do we have a hunger for? What do we have the will to do? What are their resources for? Who volunteers? What takes money? What's the technology? But I would say one thing, it's not just putting a message out, because I hear a lot about putting a message out. I want to hear what people have to say to bring that back in, and it informs policy, and it respects a diversity of opinion, because we don't all agree on these things, and we can't expect to, but if we can collaborate successfully. I have a couple of phrases written down. Seeking sound advice, I thought that was lovely. High trust, low fear. So if that's what we do and how we do it, I think we are likely to be successful as long as we have a complete communication loop dealing with geography and program in a way that matters to people and they see the value.
Thanks, Leanne. And I would reiterate that if we are successful in getting people to come to the table, we have to make them feel listened to. Whether we agree with everything or not, they're going to not come back if we don't listen and make it clear that we understand what's going on with other people's lives. I have a couple of points, and I want to respect our time here. We're slated for 6:15 to distribute materials for next time. As was brought up, many of the subgroups have not discussed Goal 1 as a whole yet, so if there are more thoughts that come up, please bring them at future meetings. I think this is an open process throughout, so if there are ideas that come up either from the public or from the members of the body, please keep them coming. I did want to say, especially since we had someone here talking about inclusiveness for bilingual populations, I think at the very least we should be translating the documents that we're putting out in the public and probably doing closed captioning for our county videos if possible. I don't know what our capacity is for that. But I think 5% of our population, even by the census, is Spanish speaking at home. So we need to respect that population and include them. I also think, I just want to throw out the idea that one of the things that was in our packet was fear of government as a technocracy, that we have a complicated government apparatus at every level, and including our county, and that's intimidating for a good number of people who just don't understand the process. I mean, I think one of the things that's been fascinating about something like Timber Unity is people reading legislation that haven't done that for a long time, and that is inclusive by itself, but it's not easy to do. And my hometown had a program that was a annual Citizens Academy. It was free for people who lived in the town, though it could be a county level program. Where you came, you signed up. It was over the course of a month. I think they had a half dozen sessions. where you came and toured different parts of the city government. You talked to the city council about the legislative process. You got to go to the planning commission and talk to them about what they do, so that people who were interested but hadn't yet gotten over the learning curve of everything that the county government does could go and learn about it and learn about how they could be involved, and even all of the aspects of what our government does. I mean, it's been fascinating to me talking about Facebook. Joan Herman is a friend of mine, and even she is constantly putting up things that she's learning about city government as a city councilor that most of us don't have the opportunity to learn about. And how would we? Because we don't get tours from the director of public works, you know. But that should be a civic function, and it could be that the director of public works takes a day off a year and gives a little tour to a couple dozen people and says, this is what we do. So I would love to see that.
I came from a city in Florida that did a similar program, and it was excellent. We got so much positive feedback, and the classes were always filled.
We have a model here in Oregon with the Association of Oregon Counties County College.
We do.
And that could be something here. Yes, and it's everybody says just wonderful things about it, and it ties back to me to something someone said earlier about people being frustrated at where in the process they are. So often I'll be at a hearing where it's the last hearing at the 11th hour for a transportation thing, and someone comes in and asks a broader systems question, like, what about these other roads coming into it or something like that? I'm sorry, ma'am, but you know, we're not talking about that now. That'll piss anybody off, right? But you know, so should they have known more about the process and where to fit in? I mean, or not? I mean, that's a high bar to ask of a citizen. So part of my food cart would be like, where in the public process can you steer, and where do you row, and where do you kind of swallow it, you know? Yeah, so but it's complicated and geeky, so how do we make that into a Fortnite kind of thing and have shoot first person stuff? But I'm done.
Maybe I've got a suggestion.
Yes, sir.
Perhaps at the next time we meet, you could just make a general announcement to the people that, one, you as guests, we want to give you fair time and time to talk as other discussions we have about that. So you don't forget it. Number two, the fact of how we function. We are just kind of clearinghouse to think about. We're all me. But our job is just to be out there and be the ear for the Clatsop County now. And then make a curated, distilled presentation at some point to the people that sit over there. And then they're going to take this information with the best of their ability to move forward. And so we're here to just listen. Today was a good example of wonderful things that we may not have known about that are very clear. But welcome them to say, you're going to have a chance. We're just an organization that listens, and then we pass it on.
Thank you, Harold. I like that.
I have an informal suggestion.
Sure.
I'm not even sure this is a good one, but given the time that we meet in the future, we might have an open-ended invitation to go out for a beer afterward or a coffee, so we can carry on discussion, because you and I probably, it would be a good input, because you and I probably do things differently, and you would be somebody I could talk with safely, and you could talk with me safely. And
I will note that no more than a quorum of us can go out without public notice.
Remember, you are a public
I wonder if our...
So if you and Katie one-on-one want to go out and meet and have a beer and continue your discussion.
But I can't join them?
Yes, you can.
I mean, the city planning commission goes out after their meeting.
I'm sure that the LCD
They don't discuss anything related to planning.
Except Lisa.
Gail, could we get a...
Is there, I mean...
Could we get a reading on what constitutes a quorum for this body once all of the regional groups add their representatives?
Yeah, I don't know if we put that in your bylaws, but I'll check.
Because I know that of the smaller group of 5 or whatever, we would have had a quorum of 3, which would necessitate a public record notice. But with the subgroups adding their populations, I don't know if our body has then grown to 10,
It will
and
eventually
then,
grow to 10.
and then we would have a quorum requirement of 5. So any 4 of us could go out for beers.
It's kind of like when you go to the one by the food cart,
we
so
just-
sit on the other side of the road.
We just need to split into 2 bars.
Yeah.
I want to ask a question.
Yeah.
In the Arts Council, we have 9 members, but we cannot even get more than 2.
I think that DLCD could really earn their keep, straightening out all the misperceptions there are regarding the open meetings law process. Because I think it has scared more people than it is, that the planning commission used to go out and have lunch every time, but they stayed clear of the topics.
So Lisa did come down in January or February this year, and we did send notices to all the planning commissioners and everybody about this very exact topic.
Yeah.
I'm sure that we will reach your presentation if that would be helpful to everybody.
Lisa, is it possible for you to present for a few minutes next time we meet?
Okay.
And that will be August 8th at 4 p.m. Okay.
Todd?
Yeah, I would like to reiterate a point we made earlier, and that is that we address the issue of our being out of sync. That some of the committees are just getting the Goal 1 documents, and I presume that next meeting is going to be Goal 2, and if I want to, or anybody who wants to represent their group and they've just gotten Goal 1, they're going to be extending the meeting and interrupting and getting in when they're not really appropriate. It seems to me that coordination of this process is not working well. And it's incumbent upon you guys that organize it to make sure that the subcommittees have a chance to give input to this group, because this is supposed to be the one that hears everybody's concerns.
They will, and what has happened with the initial, the first round of CA advisory committee meetings is that people did not respond to doodle polls, people did not respond to emails, people did not find a common date, they can pick a meeting. So we did dispersing out. The groups that met in June didn't want to delay it by a month. This board had, this committee had the same discussion that they didn't want to delay their process. And the process will come. Everything is going to come back to you and come back to every single citizen advisory committee. The materials that I'm going to distribute are for Goal 2. So you, as the liaison to this committee, will have those, you're getting those materials today. So they're online. Will be August 8th here for this one. So you're actually going to be a step ahead of your Southwest, your fellow members. You're going to be better educated than they are.
But I'm representing them and their interests.
Oh, I
And
see what you're saying. Okay, I see.
Right.
Will it be online? Couldn't people access it online before your next meeting?
I think, though, Todd's point to me is very much that our job is to coordinate and collate information coming in from the different regional groups so that we can present it to the commission. And that we can't do that job if they haven't rendered an opinion yet.
Right, but their input will come back in the form of everything that is coming from all the other groups. And so we're not planning that you can do however you want. The plan is not to come back to a specific meeting to address Southwest recommendations. The goal was to take all the recommendations on Goal 1 at some point, wrap them back into a revised Goal 1, take them back to the individual committees, collect that feedback, and then bring it together to pass forward.
Can you clarify a step in that process, which is the step of, at some point, combining that information? Will that happen with this group, or will that happen with staff?
So once we get input on Goal 1 from the 6 advisory committees we have, including this one, because you have a general role to play in that advising, we will take all those comments then as staff, take the existing Goal 1 it and revise it to reflect what we think that we have heard and what you have said. And then we would go back to each one of the citizen advisory committees to say, yes, this is what we wanted, this is what we said, you heard correctly, and then bring that second round of input from the citizen advisory committee back to you for a recommendation to go to the planning commission. So at some point, the different citizen advisory committee paths are going to diverge. You've all started at the same place, maybe not the same time, but the same place, and your paths are going to diverge, and your role is going to get a little bit different, because at that point, we do have to stop goal one discussion to go back to get input on the revised draft, and then to bring it to you, and that would have to be done before. So your path and your process is going to change.
So do you envision that we would, so right now we're starting smoothly with one and going into two, but at some point we would have a stutter where we'd get input back on one or whatever stage we're at, and we would sort of push off three for a little bit and discuss the findings from, or not findings, but we would discuss what's coming out of goal one, and then we would get on to whatever our next item is. Does that?
Next meeting, our meeting here starts at 4 o'clock. I will just come from the class of plane, one that goes from 2 till 3:30, a half hour away. So same, well tuned.
You'll be warmed up. Todd, does that satisfy your concerns?
No, but I can see that that we have, these subcommittees have, or the community committees have been delayed for the reasons explained, and therefore, we're going to always be trying to put a tag on a donkey that's already passed through town.
Well, it seems like after this first meetings are over, then you'll be up to speed now that you've got everybody together. That time should be.
But next meeting, I'll be trying to report on our group's goal one when everybody else wants to talk about goal two.
But I think one of the things that I'm hearing and suggesting is that, and we as a group can decide a lot of this. I mean, Gail's putting a framework out for us, but we are.
Can we focus on one conversation at a time, please?
We're the deciders of what we handle in this group, and we can delay our discussion of goal two until we've satisfied all of the regional considerations for one.
Yeah, good, okay.
Okay, so then my question would be, do you want to have an August meeting? Or what would you like to discuss at August? Because the materials I'm presenting to you today are for goal two. Do you want to continue your discussion of goal one? And I need to correct the meeting, August 15th at 4 p.m.
Oh, good, because I thought, wow.
I think if we can get feedback on goal one from the regional groups and discuss that up front, that would be ideal. And then as much of goal two as we can cover with energy and time, we get into that.
Did you just say that we're changing from August 8th to August 15th?
They're not changing, I gave the wrong date.
It's the third Thursday.
Yeah, August 8th is actually the Class of Plains Advisory Commission.
Okay, thank you.
Gail, our next agenda item was distributing the background materials for next meeting. Is that the packet that we have in front
That's
of
the
us?
packet that's in front of you. It's not as daunting as it looks. A lot of it, kudos, by the way, to the state, because I saw a lot of it on their website. So there's some brief summaries about what goal two is, what it does in the statewide land use planning process, a little bit of the history of planning in the state of Oregon, a brief summary about urban growth boundaries and how they work. We put together a land use and zoning matrix. It's one sheet for your reference so that you can pull out your big land use planning map here, and if you see an area that's designated as development, there's a table there that we put together that you can see the corresponding zoning districts that would go with that. There's population forecasts from Portland State that will go through 2067. Population is an important component of what statewide planning goal 2. Clatsop County's goal 2, which is very thick, is really not that scary. A lot of it, you'll see, are these beautiful handwritten.
Handwritten, very nice, yes, good printing.
And there's probably a good 100 pages of them or more that are properties that, for which the county is taking exceptions to the statewide planning goals. Which basically said either the lands are built and irrevocably committed, or there's some other reason why those lands had to be excluded from those particular goal requirements. So when you look at this, don't be afraid. Just learn about that. And then what I will do, when I put the final agenda together, is I'll be sure to include what we have from goal 1 from the other citizen advisory committees and list that as our first topic.
Okay, sounds good. Does anyone have closing comments, either from the public or from the committee? Lisa.
Just really quick, your job is to just make sure that the opportunities and accessibility of your land use is available to your community. People have to take some personal responsibility at some point. There's only so much you're going to be able to do and put into writing. But at some point, unless you're going to go pick everybody up and drive them to your meetings, you know, nail them to the seats. There's there's only so much you can do, but you can make it as open and as inclusive as possible, but there's still personal responsibility for the members of the community. Just keep that. Just keep that. That's a nice
Thank you.
balance. Good job, Mr. Chief.
With no other comments, I would accept a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, we're adjourned. Thank you all.
Good job. Yay.
I was just trying to distract from an awkward conversation. Yes, trapeze and lion
That's an old story.
Well, we'll get it somewhere for sure, but
Oh, yeah, it's inside the P.O. box.
okay. So
I'll take that to you now, would that be okay?
yeah, actually,
Sure. Where? Okay. So the Columbia River is 1,243 miles long, and my P.O. box is 1243. So that's all I remember.
Specific comments.
Oh, good. So that explains it then. Good. So I just gave this one up on the way in. So now someone else didn't have one either. Was it Andy?
He just got appointed on Friday last week.
Yeah.
So you'll get your agenda next time.
Okay, good.
And then,
And that was the only point that you raised that wasn't understanding you the first time you said about the,
Representing them.
well, no, well, yeah, representative, so yeah, the second time.
Well, I think we got it worked out.
I turned that off. Oh. That I haven't touched yet. Yeah, I think you're right. Gray stop button next to it.